Hi guys. So another video, as the title says, Taylor McCarthy tactics. What do I think of Taylor McCarthy? You'd be surprised. Maybe you won't be surprised to know. I think the guy, for the most part, here's what you got to understand as a big caveat here. His results are unquestionable. Okay. I do think some of his sales presentations, the way they finish when you watch the videos, I think to myself, well, was that going to become a sale? Because he sort of leaves some presentations, he'll leave some presentations hanging with the customer, which by saying, look, if you want to change their mind when the surveyor comes, that's up to you, man, but let me get this organised for you. So all words to that effect. And I've seen him walk away from quite a few presentations where he's celebrating he's got the deal, where basically all he's done is organise someone else to go there and do the survey. Now, again, you cannot argue with the money he earns and the sales that he's obviously made. You can't argue with that, right? Sometimes I do think he pushes far past the comfort zone of what I would be willing to push. But hey, I didn't earn, I was a 10 grand a month guy, okay? But I was only selling, for the most part, cable TV services, okay? If you're selling solar packages, well, of course you're going to earn bigger money. You just go into, it stands to reason, right? What always makes me, whether it's an intuition thing or just a comfort factor, when I watch some of the videos where he doesn't get the close, I think halfway through I would have wrapped it up then. But he keeps on going and going and going. Now, sometimes I think maybe he's just doing this for effect, to demonstrate how far you can take a conversation, But my intuition is pretty strong. And I think, I'm not surprised that presentation didn't turn into a close. I've been with salespeople shadowing or training, and they persist. And I remember one in particular, it was a carpet sales scenario. And the woman, this was a genuine real life potential sale. She wouldn't do anything unless her husband was there. But the sales guy I was with kept on pushing and pushing, very politely, but pushing. And she wouldn't sign up unless her husband was there. She tried phoning him. He wasn't answering his phone. And he said, okay, I'll give you a call later then. And as he got back into his car to go to the next one, he said to me, I always like to try and think about where I went wrong with that sale. And he said to me, he said, where do you think we went wrong, Stuart? And I said, look, I wouldn't have taken it that far. I said, for me, she was a genuine, look, she ain't doing anything without husband's approval. And you just have to be comfortable with that sometimes. Okay. My own personal experience is, if you push too far and they still sign up, before installation, they will cancel. That's my personal experience from thousands of sales. Okay. And I was lucky, fair enough. I was not the top salesman in the country, but I was one of the top salespeople in the office, maybe the third best, very, very closely behind the top two, very closely behind, with a superb cancellation rate. Hardly anybody cancelled who I signed up. Hardly anybody. Okay. But But this is my experience. If you push too hard, they cancel. Now, I used to have these conversations with the top salespeople in the country, okay? And their theory, their methodology was, look, just throw mud at the wall, see what sticks. Now, from a managerial point of view, I kind of understand it, because we have got cooling off periods of 2 weeks. And so that protects the salesperson as well as the consumer. Okay. We can almost say anything, because if they wake up the next day or speak to a friend over the next several days and they kind of feel uncomfortable about what we've said, well, they're protected. Okay. And they've got 2 weeks to do that. And that protects us, you know. So it's a funny one, you know, as to how far you push. I remember another example. One of the top guys I knew in door-to-door sales, he was sitting there in the office, like the cat who got the cream, because the previous night, and this was a record, in town, in suburbia, he got 8 sales in one night. Now, I knew the demographic that he had sold to. I knew it. And I thought, that's a bit whiffy. That's a bit whiffy. Again, my intuition. Okay. I thought, that's a bit whiffy. The following day, I think 6 of those sales had cancelled. Right. You know. Now, I've had similar instances myself, only when I've been in a highly competitive environment, like we've been on a regional trip. We're 600 kilometres, 400 miles away from our regular place of knocking, the suburb the city that we lived in, you know. We could be several hours away. And you're there for a week. You'll be in a regional town for a week. There's maybe 30,000 people in this regional town. And there are 6 of the top salespeople in the country descend upon that town. And it becomes highly competitive. You're doing 2 stints of knocking, 9 till 1, 9 till 2, and then 4 till 8. And it's full on. You're self-employed. You've got to pay for your hotel while you're there, And it is highly competitive, and everyone's going for it. Now, in those situations, even my cancellation rate would go up. I can't remember exactly, but it would certainly move from my regular 5% to maybe 20%, maybe something like that. It's hard to say, 10, 20%. All because you've pushed too hard. So it's something you've got to weigh up. So when I watch Taylor McCarthy pushing and pushing and pushing, I do get a little bit uncomfortable with it. I do. But you've got to remember, a lot of it is for effect. Okay? He is showing you how to politely persist. And for that, I think is brilliant. Absolutely superb. Huge fan. And again, it's very hard to criticise him because of his track record. Certain things I don't like. Sometimes his body language when he's sort of walking down the street like a wannabe rapper in the hood type guy. I don't think there's need for that. But look, that's his style. That is his style. I've seen it many times, even when I used to knock doors. People just swagger down the road, like they're from like they're in a rap gang or a gangster gang. You get my point, right? And I just don't like it. I don't like it. He has got such confidence. He could wear a gorilla suit and still make sales. Okay, so at that level, it doesn't really matter what your persona is, because it's your body language when you're on the door, and it's the way you conduct yourself with your politeness when you're on the door. You know, I wish he'd take his cap off, because sometimes I think, can you see his eyes when he's talking? You know, but I'm nitpicking. Look, I think the guy's brilliant. I do. Full. You know, full round of applause to the guy. He's brilliant. Okay. Anyway, that's all I've got to say about Taylor McCarthy. Till the next time. Like and subscribe.